Police officers and first responders wear badges to let their communities know they are here to protect and serve. But it comes at a price. Samantha Horwitz and John Salerno work with police departments across the country to bring valuable recovery, insight resources, and workshops. A Badge of Honor TV brings those professionals to you so we can come together and revitalize communities through a better understanding of what's at stake and what's required for repair. So take a load off and turn up your TV. It's about to get real.
Hey, welcome to A Badge of Honor TV with John and Sam, and it's Mental Health Monday, man. Welcome back to all our dedicated viewers and people across the nation. This is an important show, an important broadcast to make you get mentally healthy, to help you get mentally healthy, bring you the resources. We are powered by the OBBM network. You can catch us on Roku TV. And I want to say hello to my partner, Sam. What's going on, Sam?
Hey, I feel like I'm about to get it should be Soapbox Sam moment. It was a great weekend with the Celebrity Softball Classic. You know, and all the exciting things that happened there. Lots of money raised, and you know, unfortunately, overshadowed by the pure idiotic chaos that is occurring in Portland and Chicago. And the reason I say we agree idiotic is because, you know, our brothers and sisters, they need to make a decision. Whichever you want to start with, why don't we go Portland, because they started the shenanigans first. To our brothers and sisters in blue, yeah, we're talking to you. It is disheartening, disappointing, and disgusting to see the behavior that you all chose to engage in, not only arresting members of press, but arresting members of the public that were there to support ICE in doing exactly what they're supposed to do. You all swore an oath. If you don't like it, get out. Because those of us that have been doing the job and did the job for a long time, you don't get to pick and choose. You do the job. And
you mind if I jump in real quick, Sam, on that? I just want to
sure, because we got to go to Chicago, or maybe I just want to rebut that.
I just want to rebut that because, you know, this is coming down from, you know, it's they're following orders. And I'm not discrediting what you said, but they're following orders. This is coming down from our politicians. When you want to call someone disgusting and despicable, it's every politician out there who doesn't want to keep the law-abiding citizens safe. Our officers are trying to do a job. They're trying to do what's right, but they're being ordered. They're being ordered to arrest the people that are trying to either cover the event or the innocent civilians. And they're letting the criminals walk the streets and cause anarchy. And that's the bad part about it. It's our politicians that are really causing this havoc.
Well, they're letting our city burn, politician or not. If it's 50 on a line against one politician, it's 50 against one. It's time. Sorry, John. I grew up with you don't follow an unlawful order. Those are unlawful orders to do what you did. And it's who they're choosing to arrest. So We'll see what happens tomorrow when, you know, we've got some things changing there. Chicago, there's absolutely no excuse. There's no stand down order when a fellow member of law enforcement is in trouble. They need to know that you've got their back. That's why we go into this job where we've got our brothers and sisters' backs, no matter what. So if you're given an unlawful order, you disobey the unlawful order. Okay? It's in a rule book. It's in a manual that says you are not obligated to follow an unlawful order. Because I guarantee you, if that federal agent was killed, murdered, there'd be a whole lot of people right now having to explain themselves. And we,
Agreed.
Meaning you and I, and a lot of people that watch the show, and a lot of people that are involved in the production of this, would expect to see indictments and handcuffs.
You know, 343 first responders who were going to the towers that they defied a direct order to evacuate because there were still people, there were civilians there that they were going to help. And they knew what the consequences would be, and they were not going to retreat. As a person, an officer in blue, man, I agree with you, Sam. You know what? No matter if you feel in your heart that that's not the right decision, if your commanding officer is giving you a bad decision, but you want to go save a brother officer, you do it. You take the consequences later.
And put yourself
Put
yourself in their shoes. If roles are reversed, I'm pretty sure everybody would say, yeah, I'd want somebody to help.
Without a doubt.
So
and I feel bad for those ICE agents who were expecting help and expecting people to come to their aid, and they get crickets. Man, I can't imagine what they were going through.
It's a horrible thing. It's absolutely horrible. And decisions are going to have to be made. John, NYPD did a sick out. There are enough good ones. There are enough good ones of you out there. Make a decision. If it's not going well, do a sick out. Do something. Stand your ground. Okay? We have to tell these politicians, they don't run you. They don't run this. They don't run your morals and values. You do the right thing. You stand on that line and you back up your brothers and sisters, period. Sam's soapbox moment open. When things go bad.
And if you don't want to do that, you can do what most NYPD officers do once they get sick of the job, is they take the fire test and they move over to the family of red. And then they live tranquil lives and they enjoy the good food. They work a little harder fighting the fires, but most of them, you never see an FDNY guy flip over to the NYPD. You see all these NYPD guys flipping over to fire.
Well, I'll take your word for that. But really, our guest tonight straddles a very unique line because he fills the firefighter role, but he also fills an investigator role. And Erik's been doing this job for 22 years. He's seen a lot. He's done a lot. And without further ado, let's bring on Erik Mickelsen. He is a fire marshal from New Jersey. Erik, welcome to A Badge of Honor TV.
Hey, Sam. Hey, John. Thanks for having me on.
Erik.
Pleasure to be on the show. Thank you.
I'm going to date myself again, too, because every time, when I hear Fire Marshal, I go back to In Living Color with Jim Carrey, Fire Marshal Bob,
Bill,
Fire Marshal Bill, yeah. And it always just hits my head, and I go, but, it's a little different from Fire Marshal Bill to Fire Marshal Erik. That is probably one of the hardest roles to determine origin and do investigation as a firefighter and as an investigator. So my heart goes out to you, Erik. You do a great job.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, thanks. So tell everybody watching and listening on their favorite podcast app a little bit about you and your background.
Yeah, sure. So I'm located about 30 minutes east of New York City, almost dead smack in the middle of New Jersey. And I've been over here for about almost 23 years now doing the job. I'm a fire marshal, fire investigator, firefighter. So I transcend a couple different roles. And, every once in a while, you got to change hats in the middle of the day or sometimes hour to hour, depending on what's going on. But it's been a really rewarding career. I don't know if it's quite the utopia that John paints it out to be, being on the red side of things, but it's been a great career, though. It has been.
You got to admit you got better food. For sure.
But, and most of the time people are happy to see us show up, John. So, yeah, that's for sure. But, so I've been over here for a long time. In addition to working in my department, I'm also assigned to the Regional County Investigation Task Force through the prosecutor's office. So I investigate fires not only within my jurisdiction, but also within the county at large. So it's another 307 miles that we cover in all the communities in that encompass that county wide jurisdiction. And then I hold down a part-time job as well with another jurisdiction where I'm the chief fire marshal over there, and I got a really great group of guys that work for me over there. So I stay busy, it's really rewarding, but at times really hectic. So, but
It sounds like it. It sounds like it, especially that covering that 300 square miles. When John talks about, the small area that he covered and NYPD and all the crime, it's like, okay, now 300 square miles. But when we come back from our first break, your role as a fire marshal is a little different from how John and I experience. We are also East Coasters. But you guys don't have that law enforcement role. So when we come back, we'll explain how it can be different. Stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back.
When you choose Patriot Mobile, you're not just picking a wireless provider. You're choosing a company that shares your values. It's easy to switch, and you can keep your number, your phone, and most importantly, your values. With Patriot Mobile, you get the power of nationwide coverage on all 3 major networks. That means wherever life takes you, we've got you covered on the same reliable networks you already know and trust. And when you need us, we're here for you right here at home. Our customer service is 100% US based because we believe that support should come from people who understand you and your values. At Patriot Mobile, you're not just another call, you're a priority. In today's world, where you spend your money matters more than ever, every dollar is a vote for the kind of future you want to build. Join the thousands of Americans making a difference with every call, every text, and every connection. Choose a company that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
All right, switch to Patriot Mobile now and get a free month of service with offer code BADGE. So go to patriotmobile.com/badge, fill out the very short sheet of information, and the Patriot Mobile will give you a call. Or you can call 972-PATRIOT. Tell them I'm using promo code BADGE. Again, that's a free month of service. You will not be sorry you switched. I can promise you that. Our family has been Patriot Mobile customers since 2021. They use the same big 3 signal, so you're not losing that. It's just your money goes to a company that actually cares about you and causes like veterans and first responders. So again, 972-PATRIOT, promo code BADGE, or patriotmobile.com/badge. Now back to the show.
All right, well, welcome back, Erik and Sam. When before we left for the last commercial, you were giving us a little bio of yourself, Erik, about being a firefighter, investigator, and covering over 300 miles of of area throughout the state of New Jersey and your different roles that you played. One thing I wanted to talk about real quick before we jump into yours, Sam. Back in the day, and police movies and TV was all the rage, and people expected cops to solve a homicide in 60 minutes. Now we got all these fire shows. We got the Chicago Fire. We got all these different fire shows on, and I want the public to know that's really not realistic. They don't solve arson fires within a 60-minute period. It is very intense. It takes months, sometimes years, to really get the true origin of a fire if it was that bad. Correct?
Yeah. So it's funny because I teach a college level course for fire investigation, and one of the things in my introductory courses, forensic science, and the fire investigation being the forgotten forensic science. And I always like to highlight that the CSI shows do occasionally throw in a fire investigation show. So we do have an important role, So, but so it's definitely not what it's portrayed on TV. It's down and dirty. It's not always pleasant. It definitely takes a long time to sort through this stuff, to figure things out. And it's a real meticulous process that can be extremely time consuming and frustrating at the same time. One of the things that I love to compare it to is John and Sam, you both come from a law enforcement background. You've both investigated crime scenes, murders, homicides, robberies, different things like that. So if you could imagine going out to investigate a murder scene, but before you're allowed to process the scene, we let like 10 or 15 firefighters kind of have at the scene. So they're allowed to drag a hose through there. They're allowed to walk all over your evidence. They're allowed to crush things, break things, move things, throw things out the window. And then after it's all done, they take the hose stream and blast it all apart. and then they say, okay, well, go ahead in and investigate it. Well, that's kind of like what it's like doing a fire scene investigation. So trying to pick up the pieces after a team of firefighters. And look, our firefighters are great. They do a great job in preserving what they can, but ultimately they have a job to do to put that fire out first before we go in and even begin. So, but it definitely is one of the unique challenges in fire investigation. It's unlike any other crime scene investigation that you face, just because of the sheer destruction in it, from a totality.
Like we look for fingerprints. You guys look for burn patterns and charred wood and the way and where the fire origin started. Which, God, I man, that's like you said, it's a wrecked crime scene, and you guys got to sift through it.
Yeah, it's interesting because the majority of our evidence has either been damaged, destroyed, burned, or changed into a different, melted or deformed, and we still have to analyze these things and try to figure out, make sense of them, and put them together. So it's unique. It's something that I've really found rewarding over the years, trying to walk through a scene and learn the ins and outs of the details of doing this. And it's something that I've become passionate about. It's a great forensic science. It's a great crime scene investigation.
Wow, Erik, you said that a lot of, or some of these crime scenes leave lasting impressions. And we talked a little bit before the show. If you look Erik up on social media, you'll see some of the stories that he tells. But you had two that were about a year apart. It kind of set the tone for you in your career, because it was right at the beginning of your career. Can you expand on the suicide and then the line of duty death?
Sure. So, I began my career back in, this was late 2003. And the first fire investigation that I took part in was a suicide by fire. It was a unique scene investigation, one that I have not had since. So it was interesting not only to be thrown into the fire investigation culture quickly, but also to be thrown into a case like that, because it was definitely interesting and unique all at the same time. So that gave me an interesting perspective on my career and where this was going to go, dealing not only with the fatality, but the circumstances of the suicide aspect of that case as well. I want to say that it gave me a very clear snapshot of what could be and what we could be dealing with. Now, obviously, not every call has that level of intensity or that level of detail, but it definitely set a tone moving into the beginning of my career. And then, unfortunately, the first year that I was on the job, we were really busy. We had quite a few things going on. We had a spree arsonist that was creating a little bit of havoc. And then, unfortunately, about a year into the job, we experienced a line of duty death where we had a team of firefighters from one of our volunteer fire departments, really progressive department, great group of guys. These are guys that they're like, always training. They're the elite firefighters. They do a great job. They're always on point, but it just, sometimes things happen. Sometimes things go wrong, as you guys know better than anybody in law enforcement, right? So, these guys showed up at a house. Lady was trapped in the house. They went in to effect the rescue, found her, were able to start removing her out. And unfortunately, the floor collapsed and they all fell into the floor, into the inferno in the basement. Luckily, 4 of them were able to be pulled out and made it. But unfortunately, one of our brothers that day did not make it out. So that was difficult back then. Let's see, that was 20 years ago. The aspect of mental health and the calls was not the same as it is now. So we were there as fire suppression. We were there as part of the rescue effort, and then we changed hats to go into the investigation right after the incident. So it was tough. That was a difficult day, and I know we approach things a lot differently nowadays with regards to making sure that our people are mentally okay and doing well on these scenes. But it was difficult. That was a tough one to really swallow so early on in my career. And it was one of those moments where you look at it and you're like, well, maybe I'm making the wrong choice being in this career. And then after the stress of the situation goes away, you look back on it and you say, yeah, this is where I need to be. This is where I want to be.
We want to talk about the stress of that when we come back from our next break, and how you personally dealt with it and compartmentalized. We'll be right back, everybody. Stay tuned.
Look, when you need to respond to an aggressive situation to protect yourself, your family, or your property, understanding your firearm and legal position are critical. Officers know your skills are only as good as your commitment to training. So know what you're doing. So when you're in a vulnerable situation, we can count on your response. Whether you're a beginner or a licensed gun carrier, Carry in Texas offers basic firearms training, Texas permitless carry courses, license to carry, and basic 2A courses so you can understand the responsibilities, situational awareness, and learn the technical skill required when you carry your firearm. Go to carryintexas.com to find the right course for you. Join me, former United States Secret Service agent Samantha Horwitz, on the range for beginner basics, LTC prep, and range practice. Go to carryintexas.com today. That's carryintexas.com.
Hey, welcome back to A Badge of Honor TV with John and Sam and Fire Marshal Erik, firefighter Erik Mickelsen, in the state of New Jersey over on the East Coast. Before we took our break, Erik was telling us about two past calls 20 plus years ago. And this brings up the mental health aspect, because when he was explaining the call, Erik, you were almost able to explain that call in detail. Like, you can visualize that call. You can remember the scene. You can remember what happened. And I'm sure it probably even gets more vivid the more you think about it. And that's why we talk about the mental health aspect of this, is that, first responders never forget those calls. That is something that they go to sleep with every night, and that's what they take to the next call. There's never decompression. There's never, you can't just file that call away and forget about it. You just need to constantly be proactive and keep going out, and hopefully it never happens again. So that's why we're here today, to really emphasize on the mental stress that's put on our firefighters and our first responders and our law enforcement each and every day.
Sure.
So
yeah. You never forget the details of calls, good or bad. I don't know. You two are both retired now, and I'm sure you can think back. You can picture yourself at certain scenes. You can almost smell the scene again. You can visualize it, and you remember every detail of that scene. And I remember more details of scenes than I have forgotten scenes, for sure. Yeah. And sometimes that's the 3 o'clock in the morning wake up call where you're looking back on, maybe it's not a stressful scene, but maybe it's just a scene that kind of left you guessing. And it's that, I don't know why it's always 2 or 3 in the morning, but that seems to be the time when these things come into our minds and we're thinking.
That's about when your brain starts going into the REM sleep and starts filing stuff away. So at that point, either you're going to wake up or your brain's going to file it into that certain file cabinet and you're going to be okay, or it's going to wake you up and you're going to relive that experience again. And some first responders relive it all day in and day out and day in and day out, and it just piles up, compounded trauma.
I spoke with a retired guy recently that I was friends with, and he's been out of the game for, I don't know, about 8 years now. And he was having trouble with some of the stressors from the calls. And he said, it's funny because when I was on the job, it never bothered me. Now that I'm retired, all of a sudden I'm experiencing this mental trauma from these calls that I had gone through now 30 years ago. And it is interesting how you're almost moving at such a fast pace when you're in the job and you're working that you don't allow yourself the time to think about it and process it. But as soon as you stop and retire, I would imagine that it's like a flood that comes on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be. So what did you do? Because you said things were different in the fire service now in terms of mental health, but those came boom, boom, back to back, pretty traumatic for I think it's helpful for everybody watching and listening to just hear firsthand how did you compartmentalize and deal with that?
Sure. So, I mean, I'm very fortunate because my wife in addition to being a nurse, is also a social worker. So she's got a background in mental health. And, look, I always say that I'm so fortunate to have her in my life. I would not be here today if it wasn't for her. And it's just by chance that, God put us together and knew what my future stressors would be and how she would be able to help me through them. It's been an incredible partnership, an incredible marriage over the years, and I'm forever grateful to her, because she was a huge part in me processing those scenes. I would come home at night and she knew how to talk to me or how to sit down and process through these things. So I was really fortunate. There's a lot of guys out there that are not so fortunate, a lot of women out there that are not so fortunate, that don't have a spouse that understands it. And I think in our industry, fire, police,
EMS,
our spouse, even EMS, even dispatch, let's even say dispatch and military, right? So there's a lot of spouses out there that just become frustrated because they've never lived that other side of things. They've never walked in those shoes, so they don't understand it, and it unfortunately sometimes doesn't turn out well. But for me, having my wife and her background, it was amazing.
Well, you said a key word. She knew how to talk to you. She knew how to get onto your level. Even if wives out there or spouses out there that aren't nurses or do not have that background, that's what me and Sam do. We do workshops for the families. We tell you how to approach these situations when someone's having a trigger moment or someone's starting to have a stressful issue. There's certain key words you don't use. There's certain ways to approach it, and there's certain ways to understand it to bring that person down. And thank God for your wife, Erik, to do that.
Yeah, the education of the spouses that you guys do is so important. It's such a great initiative.
Well, thank you. And I think you said it best, is you had somebody right there to talk to, but the key is you talk to someone. Yeah. And so even if it's not, if the spouse doesn't understand or a friend doesn't understand, we've got peer support now in a lot of the firehouses, but find a culturally competent practitioner, somebody that speaks your language.
Right. Absolutely. And look, even with my wife and her background, it's still been difficult over the years. There's been things that I think I've been reluctant to open up on or talk about. And it's easier to swallow it down and push through to the next day. And that's my fault, because that's just become a coping mechanism where I should have taken the time to talk with her. I should have, grabbed that cup of coffee with her instead, but it's easier just to swallow it down and move on, so.
Well, I'm going to flip the script for a second, because she's a nurse and a social worker, two highly, highly stressful aspects of life. Do you know how to talk to her?
I'll tell you, John, I try, that's a tough one, because man, our industry, you develop a little bit of a hard shell, right? And so that goes both ways. So, and she definitely deals with a lot of mental trauma on her end of things. Yeah. She works in the NICU at the moment, and that's difficult when things are good, that they're good, but when things go bad, they really go bad quickly. And look, I do try to be there for her, John, but unfortunately, I don't always hit the mark.
I didn't mean to open up that can of worms.
Oh, you're right. I mean,
I could just imagine the conversation later tonight.
Yeah.
You can thank him for that.
Yeah. So let's get off that for a second. Let's go back into the fire investigation. You guys in Jersey, in New York, most of our fire marshals and investigators have police powers. When an arsonist lights a building on fire, there's certain trends and patterns. They like to sit around and watch it and the whole bit. There's that thing, almost like a serial killer. They're an arsonist. They get off on that.
That's how they get off on that.
Yeah. And then they also go back to the scene to see the damage that they did. And at that point, there's sometimes fire marshals there and fire investigators there that are conducting an investigation. Very dangerous situation for a fire marshal, because you're there usually with one or two people, walking an empty, dark building by yourself, and you do not have arrest powers, right? You don't have no arrest powers.
Correct.
and you don't have a weapon to protect yourself in these buildings. So, what do you guys do on your end to keep yourself safe and to get through those days?
Well, I mean, I'm in pretty good shape, John, so I can run pretty fast. So that's always helpful.
In turnout boots?
Yeah, absolutely. I could hit the road pretty quick. But on a serious note, so the fire marshals go out for every fire investigation, whether, it's smallest to the largest fire scene. Once we get out there and we make a determination that it could be incendiary in nature or something doesn't look right, then we call over our counterpart in the detective bureau, and we usually get them to respond out and then work the scene with us. So what's great is we have an outstanding relationship with our police officers and our detective bureau. And, we usually end up working with the same guys. So we've developed lifelong relationships with these guys. We're in lockstep with what we're going to do with the process. And, we come to depend on each other, and then we will work that scene together to see it through. So really it's again, for everybody watching that thinks, the TV shows where cops and firefighters fight on scene and don't get along, that I've never experienced that in my entire life. In fact, I'm so grateful for my law enforcement counterparts. They're tremendous. We help each other out through everything. And, we know exactly the next step that the other person is going to take before we do it.
Now, most detectives aren't trained in fire investigation or even the fire lingo to go that far. Sometimes when you're talking about fire science, if they're just a detective, it's like talking to a 3-year-old. So your guys over there are pretty engaged in fire science and everything else. They know your terminology because you worked so close together.
Right. So our detectives that come out and work with us are sent through fire investigation school. So they go through the New Jersey DCJ Academy, which is an 80-hour course for fire arson investigation. And so these guys, and really the guys that come to work in that role, usually both of the guys I deal with right now have a volunteer firefighter background. So they've got that basis for fire science, fire dynamics, and then they've got the law enforcement component also. So we are really fortunate with the setup that we have.
That is totally amazing. Just before we were talking about this, we were talking about coffee. And, Ben and Amanda Holmes, who founded East Texas Legends Coffee Company, it reflects their journey from Ben's Marine Corps service and law enforcement career, overcoming PTSD to finding purpose in ranching. Relocating to an East Texas ranch, they identified a need for a local coffee brand. Now they're opening their first coffee shop in Lindale, Texas. It's rooted in faith, family, and community. Their mission: inspire purposeful conversations over coffee. So drink coffee, be legendary. Go to East Texas Legends Coffee Company by visiting their website, etxcoffee.com. Put it up here on the screen. That's etxlegendscoffee.com. Use promo code BADGE for 15% off coffee and merchandise. Again, and their merch is freaking awesome. You can connect, inspire, and Ben and Amanda always give back. Again, etxlegendscoffee.com. Use promo code BADGE for 15% off, and they will ship to you. So, you want to place your order with a quickness. Yes. Cheers, John, as we do on, see, this is some of the swag. It's nice. Yeah. So yeah, there you go. Erik and your wife. You're going to have some legendary conversations over some Texas Legends coffee. So they'll ship to you. So go ahead and grab that again. Promo code BADGE. Go to the website, 15% off. John, Erik, you were answering John's question about that joint partnership that you have, and that the law enforcement guys, and I mean girls too, the law enforcement partners go through the 80-hour fire academy to assist. So it's a real partnership that sounds like you guys solve a lot.
We do. And, you know, on a county basis with our county regional investigation task force, we're unique. And I find out by going for trainings throughout the country how unique we actually are, in the fact that our task force, which is comprised of police officers, detectives, and fire marshals, and the way we train together regularly and how we operate on a scene is really not the norm, which is, it's fantastic. We really have a great group of men and women that come together. And again, that's a little bit of a larger scale approach, right? So because our teams that go out are 5 to 7 people. And it's comprised of different backgrounds and agencies, but we always seem to find each other on the same page and in lockstep, which is so important.
You know, there's another aspect of your job that I want to bring up that a lot of people do not see as well. You know, when they see a firefighter go out, they think they all go back to the firehouse. You got probably a stack of reports about this big. And, you know, when you are not fighting fires, investigating fires, or doing your training, you spend a lot of time probably in court trying to explain to jurors and to insurance companies the things that you found, your findings, and what had happened. So do you spend a lot of time in court as well, testimonies and this, that, and the other thing?
Yeah. So remember, the large majority of fires we work are not incendiary arson fires, right? So the majority of the fires we work are product liability, appliances, structural deficiencies, things like that, which end up in the civil realm and on the insurance side of things. So we do spend a lot of time on that side of things, more so than on the incendiary and criminal side, of course. Yeah. So and those investigations can become pretty complex when you've got a house where there's multiple appliances or devices involved. Each one of those is going to have an investigator representing that agency or that product liability involvement. So you could have upwards of 5 to 10 investigators on a single fire scene investigation at some point, you know, doing evidence examination or things of that nature. So those scenes do become pretty complex. But for me, that's kind of the fun part of the job. I really enjoy that component.
That's the analytical aspect of it, man. Right. That's getting into which pulled more power. Was it the microwave? Was it the coffee machine? Was it this? Was it that? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. A little bit of subrogation. Everybody wants to push it off on the other guy's product a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And you also
the ion, the batteries.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and we're going to touch on the lithium ion, but real quick, you also do the sketches for some of the scenes, and you can see some of Erik's sketches on his LinkedIn.
Yeah, so it's a unique crossroad where my personal hobbies and my profession kind of came together. So I started doing it. I've always been into artwork and drawing, and it was something that sketches are part of the investigative process with fire scenes. And so it became helpful when I started doing these recreations on scene early on in my career. So I could sit down with someone and sort of sketch out the room and ask them to tell me where things were placed so I could recreate the room with them. Because ultimately it's just a burned out environment at the time we walk in. So it's helpful to have sort of a sketch outline of what that compartment looked like in the pre-fire conditions. So that's been helpful, and it's been valuable in certain cases. And then also I'll take it back and rebuild a scene sketch or a scene diagram to recreate the scene afterwards to utilize for a jury or somebody to analyze. Because ultimately, when we show them a picture of a scene that's burned out, it's just chaos, right? It's chaotic. It's hard to make sense out of it. But if you put it next to a diagram or a drawing that's a recreation, it kind of makes sense to them, and they can start to see it and put it together.
Yeah. So John started to say something that is, it has affected fire departments across the United States are the lithium ion batteries. In Texas, a big thing is battery energy storage. And the fact that we have a lot of small towns in Texas, they are just not cut out to even respond to the fire. And you have environmental concerns because it's in a rural place. whether it goes in, leaches into the soil, or God forbid gets down to the aquifer level. Let's talk about that, because we got, like them or hate them, we got a lot of electric cars on the road,
That's
and
a
we got
whole
more and
nother
more.
aspect of firefighting. You know, that's not like room and contents. You know, that means, you know, every fire, when you go to a battery operator or a energy station, it's a whole different world of firefighting. And I know you guys got to train differently for that, correct?
Yeah. So this is not only a concerning component for firefighters and fire investigators. This is a concerning thing for police officers as well, right? Because let's take the example of that accident scene up on the highway, and now let's involve an electric vehicle in that same accident scene. Once that vehicle and the battery packs decide to go into thermal runaway due to the trauma to the pack, it's going to progress very quickly. And now if that police officer tries to effect the rescue of somebody trapped in the vehicle, they can very easily become overcome or injured by the destruction and the thermal runaway of those battery packs involved with those vehicles. So I don't think we've seen too much of that out there right now, but that's something that we need to keep an eye on, and all of our first responders really need to be educated on.
When you
And
say
thermal
thermal runaway, you're talking about the
Yeah.
heat? Oh,
So
sorry.
thermal runaway of a battery pack is when the battery experiences some sort of trauma or overcharging or overheating or some sort of event to make it go into thermal runaway, where it now starts to burn and enter the combustion phase and spreads to the other battery packs. And what we're seeing is those battery packs now can become projectiles, right? We've seen it time and time again, where they fire off and they're shooting these hot projections quite a distance, and it's a pretty violent fire and a violent combustion process. So it's new. It's not, like you said, it's not going anywhere, right? Hopefully they're going to change and correct some of the technology and make it safer. But in the meantime, we've really got to be careful. The other thing is, take that law enforcement officer. They don't have the air mask or the SCBA, right? So they're breathing in those chemicals. We're kind of wondering long term, what's that hydrogen fluoride that's being released and those other really bad chemicals that are coming? What's that going to do to us long term? We've seen some pretty significant injuries from people breathing that in, but our law enforcement officers are in serious jeopardy by showing up on a scene and trying to do the right thing by effecting a rescue and ultimately exposing themselves.
Wow.
Now, I thought I just saw in the news, not maybe yesterday, one of those electric cars, somebody opened up the door, the battery kicked off, and the owner got badly burned. It was just a brief thing I saw in the news today, but they were just parking their car. Something happened. They opened up the door, and one of the batteries, I guess, kicked off and caused a fire in the car. Could they spontaneously go as well?
Well, it's not spontaneous. There's a mechanism for why they will go, but it could vary for what the circumstances are. But they do go quickly. That's the thing. And they're changing our approach with fire investigations, because what they're doing now is, where we have stages of fire growth and fire development, we're seeing them increasingly sped up when it involves lithium-ion batteries and components of that nature. So it's changing the game a little bit for us, but it's also changing the response game as well.
The amount of we discussed the amount of water and the environmental impact of these vehicles.
Right. So, we've had one incident where we decided to let the vehicle burn rather than try to fight the fire, because it takes about 30,000 gallons to extinguish these fires. And then when we think we have it extinguished, there's always a chance for reignition. So we have taken both approaches on them and letting them burn. We had a Tesla that burned, and we let it. It was the result of an accident. We let it burn, and it was consumed in about a little over an hour. And it was the safe way to approach it, to be honest with you. And rather than use water to extinguish the fire and then wash those chemicals into nearby drainage areas and things of that nature. So there are departments that are experimenting with both approaches on this.
So with these electric vehicles, or even with the BESS, depending on where they're located, this is like a full-on stop. All traffic stops because of the projectile situation that you talked about, because you can't be on a scene and have the car burning and have cars, continuing to go by. That's like a full stop. And then if you've got a car on a freeway and you have a lot of the neighborhoods have, the barrier, the buffer for noise, does the smoke and the stuff that burns up, is there an issue with it? In Dallas, there's a lot of wind, with it blowing in there, or by the time it gets combusted, is it not a threat? Or
no, so it's hazardous all along throughout the process. I mean, so that car up on the highway, we might have to give ourselves a little bit more clearance to work on that, right? So instead of going down to 2 lanes, we might go down to 1 lane, have the troopers move things a little bit further out just as a precaution. But as far as the smoke goes, we definitely want to try to avoid coming into contact with that or breathing it in. It's something that, we can only control so much, right? Because as you mentioned, once the wind grabs it, it's going to take it where it's going to go. But once we get it under control, the bigger problem is, and for fire investigators, is that once the fire looks like it's out and we go into a scene, all those components are still off gassing, right? So even though they're not experiencing flaming combustion, they are still off gassing. So those hazardous chemicals are still coming out. We're still subjected to breathing those in or getting them on our skin. So it's something that now we've had to step up our safety on the side of safety and protect ourselves a little bit better. Those routine fires where you would go home and take your uniforms and throw them in the laundry at home, that's not good anymore. That's something where we need to look at and say, maybe this uniform needs to come off at the station and go out to get professionally cleaned, so I don't drag this stuff home to the washing machine that my wife and kids use.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
It sounds all together just bad, dangerous news. With lithium ion stuff.
It's not all doom and gloom. I know there's a lot of good researchers out there trying to make the best of this, trying to come up with things to improve the technology. And, eventually we'll get there, but it's new. It's something that's new. It's something on the forefront we're dealing with, and we're coping with it the best we can.
Has anybody developed a fire suppression, maybe
Like
in
a
lieu of
blanket?
water? I mean, like the foam probably wouldn't work, but different fire suppression techniques or something within the car that maybe a fail safe that can maybe diminish the flames. Is there anything like that? Maybe in the process.
I'm thinking like a blanket, like throw a heavy blanket over it or something.
So they tried the blankets for a little while.
They did.
Yeah, they did.
Yep.
They were out there, and some departments did utilize them, and there were some issues with those as well. But there's nothing that has solved the problem at the moment. There's a lot of research going on out there. There's a lot of great ideas. There's a lot of great people looking at this, but nothing that has come out.
Wow, that was very unnerving. So for all you electric vehicle operators, could you just slow down a little bit? Because us that have gas, we don't want to be around you if something goes bad. Just saying.
Here's
Erik,
the bigger thing, in your homes, right? Instead of buying the replacement charger that's $3 on Amazon, buy the one that's made for the product you're using.
Exactly.
We're seeing a tremendous amount of fires in aftermarket components that people are using.
Wow.
Buy the right thing, spend the extra couple dollars, because there's safety mechanisms built into that product, right? That product's been tested by our laboratories, our ULs, and things of that nature.
I would say if you're not going to operate your computer, which everybody depends on, or your mobile phone, you're not going to buy an aftermarket for that. So don't buy an aftermarket for your appliances and other stuff.
That's right.
Treat them the same. Erik, this has been so eye-opening. I mean, we could just do a total safety class, and I might tap you to this if you're open to that, because we're dealing with a lot of the lithium ion battery energy storage issues. But where can people, because you have a lot out on social media, where can people connect with you?
Sure. So I'm most active on LinkedIn. I try to post pretty regularly. Just about every 2 weeks, I put something up. that's relevant to the fire investigation community or fire suppression community. So people could definitely search me up on there. And if they have specific questions or topics they want to discuss, I'm always accessible. They can reach out to me at any time, and I'll be more than happy to communicate with them.
Outstanding. And Erik's name is Erik, and his last name Mickelsen. For those of you listening on your favorite podcast app, you also get it in the show notes when it's posted. So you can connect with Erik on LinkedIn. Erik, thank you so much
Thank you
for coming on, for telling us all about your experience, for sharing those tough calls.
And before you leave, what's your plan for retirement? I know you got 3 more years. We discussed the mental health aspect. Now, are you going to be a professor, a teacher? You're not going to sit on the couch and just watch Chicago.
Remember all those,
all day, right?
No, that's for sure. It's 3.5 years is going to go by quick. It is. And so my wife and I have been discussing it, and there's definitely going to be work involved. It's just not going to be 70 to 80 hours a week. I'll tell you that much. Maybe a nice 40-hour job. How about that?
There you go. So you have a plan in place.
Right. Yeah.
Make sure you have a plan in place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Erik, thank you so much. We'll definitely be in touch. Appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you again to both of you, and for the job you do with this podcast. It's amazing. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, you're really welcome. Thank you. All right.
Stay well, brother.
Take care.
Stay safe. Yep.
Yes.
This was really awesome. Folks, if you have any questions, you heard Erik is an expert. So with fire investigations, again, with this lithium ion battery stuff, reach out to him on LinkedIn. His email is there as well. Connect directly with him. We've had a lot of fire folks on these last bunch of weeks, and John doesn't talk about his background enough. Yes, we both came from law enforcement, but John retired as a chief of Farmingdale
Fire Department,
all volunteer. So that's how John was a cop and a firefighter at the same time. So not double dipping from the city. And so it's really, we're doing a lot more with firefighters because just like our previous workshop, they see a lot of them have peer support, but still a lot don't have the camaraderie, don't have the outlets, and they're seeing more and more. I mean, I can only imagine a call where a Tesla's on fire and some projectile shoots out at you like, hey, we didn't sign up for this.
Yeah, but thank God for Erik's wife, who is a supportive person. She's in the field. She's a nurse. She's a social worker. So, but he said something during the broadcast that a lot of his friends who retired are now having issues, because of, when you're on the job, you have something to bounce off of. Yeah, you're constantly going. But once you hit that wall and you stop, you need a plan. So good advice from Erik.
Exactly. So, we have got a lot of good stuff going on. Wherever you are watching tonight, thank you so much for your support. Please hit that like button. Follow us on social media. If you're on Instagram, we need to get to that 1,000 and we're almost there. So our IG family, please hit that follow. On our website, you have access to a tremendous amount of ways to heal because everybody heals differently. Okay. It is just a fact of the way our brains operate. Some work on the couch, some don't. You can go to badgeofhonor.org, see as the other John Edmondson says, it's our NASCAR. Click on it. It'll take you right to their website. There's also a blue donate button on our website. We're serious when we say every penny counts. We are so grateful for everybody who has made donations. You are changing lives because we get to do what we do at no cost for the first responders. And it's been very impactful for them as well as their family. So keep hitting that blue donate button at badgeofhonor.org. Click on the events tab to find out where we'll be. We just had a private workshop. We have another workshop coming up in December, which will be open. So if you are within a 2 hours drive to Garland, Texas, you are going to want to get in on this workshop if you're an active first responder. We'll be putting the links up and everything in the coming weeks. So stay in contact there. And if you have any questions, we have a contact box on our website. So go ahead and reach out to all of our law enforcement personnel across the United States. Please, please, please. You have prayer warriors that pray for your safety and well-being every single day so that you come home. But enough with the foolishness. Okay? Enough with the foolishness. Get your shiznit in order. And remember your morals and values that you were raised with. You have an obligation to disobey unlawful orders. Don't care who they come from. It's in everybody's manual. We did the job, so we know, okay? So get it together. To our veterans out there, thank you for fighting the good fight that allows John and I to do a show like this every single week. To our active duty personnel, we're kind of on the precipice of a couple of things going on in the world, John. So fingers crossed. We are praying for you. Thank you for what you do, keeping our shores safe and protecting us here at home. John, take us home.
Man, Sammy couldn't have said it better. But if you're out and about, make sure you thank our first responders, shake their hand, tell them you appreciate what they do. And once again, always show your support for our brothers and sisters who fight the good fight.
Oh, and even better, get your butts out tomorrow night. It's National Night Out. You probably won't be able to do it in Portland or Chicago. So you'll have to wait till they get home to say thank you. But get your butts out, National Night Out. Say thank you to our first responders who are putting their rear ends on the line for us every single day. Thank you, everybody. Until next week.
A Badge of Honor podcast is produced for the OBBM Network podcast and protected under copyright law. For content permissions, please submit your request to abadgeofhonor.com on the content page. For OBBM Network programming information, please call 214-714-0495 today.